For years, it was treated as the one subject no royal insider dared discuss openly. Conversation stopped when her name was mentioned. Documents vanished behind locked doors. And those who were closest to the tragedy seemed determined to keep their silence. But now, Princess Anne is reportedly ready to break that silence, exposing truths that could reshape everything the public thought it knew about Princess Diana's final years. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The British royal family has weathered scandals, crises, and moments of extraordinary public scrutiny, but few stories have remained as emotionally charged as the story of Princess Diana. Decades have passed since her death, yet the questions have never completely disappeared. They linger in the background of royal conversations, hidden beneath official statements and carefully measured public appearances. For years, many believed the full story had already been told. The headlines had been written, the documentaries had been aired, the books had filled countless shelves. And yet, according to persistent whispers from within royal circles, important pieces of the puzzle may never have reached the public at all. What makes those whispers impossible to dismiss now is the name reportedly attached to them. Princess Anne has long been viewed as one of the most disciplined and respected members of the monarchy. She is not known for dramatic revelations or emotional public statements. Throughout her life, she has built a reputation on duty, discretion, and an unwavering commitment to the institution. That is precisely why recent claims surrounding her private concerns have generated such intense interest. If someone with Anne's reputation is allegedly questioning parts of the historical narrative surrounding Diana, many believe those concerns deserve attention. Reports suggest that conversations have quietly taken place among former royal staff members who have begun revisiting events that were never fully explained. Individuals who once remained silent are now said to be reflecting on decisions, discussions, and moments that occurred behind palace walls during some of the monarchy's most turbulent years. None of these claims provide definitive answers. Instead, they create an atmosphere filled with uncertainty, one where old assumptions are suddenly being challenged by people who were closer to the events than the public ever was. The renewed interest has also reignited difficult questions about Diana's final years. Why were certain concerns allegedly overlooked? Were there warning signs that were never properly addressed? Did some individuals recognize the seriousness of her struggles long before the wider public understood what she was facing? These questions have circulated for years, but they now carry greater weight because they appear connected to voices that were previously unwilling to speak at all. According to several royal commentators, the silence that once protected these discussions may finally be beginning to crack. What makes this situation even more compelling is that Princess Anne was not a distant observer. She occupied a unique position within the royal family. She witnessed periods of immense change, personal conflict, and institutional pressure. While others often found themselves at the center of public attention, Anne remained quietly present, watching events unfold from a perspective few people could ever claim to have shared. If she truly harbors concerns about how certain events were handled, those concerns could force a re-examination of long-held beliefs about one of the most significant chapters in modern royal history. As speculation continues to grow, the public finds itself drawn back into a story many believed had already reached its conclusion. Yet the deeper investigators and royal observers look, the more they seem to uncover hints of unfinished business, unresolved tensions, and conversations that may have remained hidden for far longer than anyone expected. And if these whispers are only the beginning, then the revelations that follow could prove even more significant than anyone currently realizes. But to understand why Princess Anne's words carry such weight, we must first revisit the complicated relationship that connected two very different women. From the outside, Princess Diana and Princess Anne appeared to inhabit completely different worlds. One captured global headlines wherever she went. The other preferred duty, discipline, and quiet service. Yet behind palace walls, their paths crossed during some of the monarchy's most turbulent years. At first glance, they seemed like opposites in almost every way imaginable. Diana possessed a natural ability to connect with people that transformed her into one of the most admired women on the planet. Crowds followed her movements. Newspapers filled their pages with stories about her. Every smile, every gesture, and every appearance seemed to generate enormous attention. Princess Anne, by contrast, spent much of her life avoiding the spotlight whenever possible. While Diana became an international symbol, Anne quietly built a reputation based on commitment, resilience, and an unwavering dedication to duty. One represented the emotional heart that captivated the public. The other represented the discipline that helped sustain the institution itself. Yet beneath those differences existed a connection that many royal observers believe has often been overlooked. Reports over the years have suggested that despite their contrasting personalities, there was a level of mutual respect between the two women. Anne understood the demands of royal life better than almost anyone. Long before Diana entered the family, Anne had already spent years navigating the relentless pressures that accompanied life within the monarchy. She understood the sacrifices. She understood the scrutiny. Most importantly, she understood the invisible burden of constantly being expected to place the institution above personal happiness. As Diana's popularity continued to soar throughout the 1980s and into the early 1990s, the challenges surrounding her position within the royal family became increasingly difficult to ignore. What had once appeared to be a storybook journey was slowly becoming something far more complicated. Public admiration continued to grow, but behind that admiration existed struggles that were becoming harder to conceal. Every passing year seemed to bring new tensions, new controversies, and new questions about the future. During this period, Anne remained what she had always been, an observer who rarely sought attention but rarely missed anything either. While much of the public focused on headlines and public appearances, Anne occupied a position that allowed her to witness developments from a perspective few others shared. She saw how family relationships evolved under pressure. She saw how expectations placed upon Diana continued to grow. And according to several accounts that have emerged over the years, she may have understood the emotional toll those pressures were creating far earlier than many people realized. The contrast between the two women became even more striking as the decade progressed. Diana's struggles were becoming increasingly visible. Public sympathy grew stronger with each passing controversy. Yet the greater her popularity became, the more complicated her relationship with the institution appeared to become. Success and suffering seemed to exist side by side. The woman admired by millions was simultaneously confronting battles that few fully understood. It was a contradiction that fascinated the public and troubled those closest to the situation. Insiders have long suggested that Anne recognized the seriousness of those challenges. Unlike many public commentators who viewed events from a distance, she was close enough to understand the pressures involved. She knew how unforgiving royal life could be. She knew how difficult it was to balance personal needs with institutional expectations. And according to persistent whispers that continue to circulate today, she may have become increasingly concerned as tensions within the family intensified and divisions deepened. What makes these claims so compelling is not simply the suggestion that Anne understood Diana's struggles. It is the possibility that she witnessed critical moments that never became public knowledge. Moments when private concerns collided with public obligations. Moments when difficult decisions were made behind closed doors. Moments that would later take on far greater significance as events continued to spiral in directions few could have predicted. And as those pressures continued to build, the monarchy found itself moving toward a period of conflict that would leave lasting scars on everyone involved. As tensions inside the royal household grew, events began unfolding that would eventually place Diana on a path no one could reverse. The fairy tale presented to the world was already beginning to fracture. Behind grand ceremonies and smiling photographs, reports suggest deep divisions were emerging. Divisions that would ultimately change the future of the monarchy itself. By the early 1990s, the gap between public perception and private reality had reportedly become impossible to ignore. To millions around the world, Prince Charles and Princess Diana remained the most recognizable royal couple of their generation. Their story had once been celebrated as the perfect union between a future king and a young woman who seemed destined to become a beloved queen. Yet beneath that carefully maintained image, troubling signs were beginning to surface. What had once been dismissed as ordinary marital difficulties was gradually evolving into something far more serious. And those closest to the situation reportedly understood that the institution was entering dangerous territory. As tensions within the marriage intensified, public scrutiny reached levels that few royal families had ever experienced before. Every disagreement became a headline. Every rumor became a topic of international discussion. Newspapers competed relentlessly for new details, while television networks analyzed every development with growing fascination. The monarchy was no longer simply managing private family matters. It was fighting a battle for public confidence in full view of the world. The pressure was relentless, and according to many accounts, it affected everyone involved. For Diana, the situation appeared especially painful. The very popularity that had once elevated her into a global icon now seemed to amplify every personal struggle she faced. Reports from the period frequently described a woman caught between extraordinary public admiration and increasing private unhappiness. The contrast was striking. She could inspire enormous affection from complete strangers while reportedly feeling isolated within the institution she had married into. That contradiction became one of the defining themes of her life during those turbulent years. Meanwhile, palace officials reportedly found themselves trapped in an increasingly difficult position. Every attempt to contain controversy seemed to create new questions. Every effort to restore stability appeared to uncover fresh tensions. The traditional methods that had once helped protect royal privacy no longer seemed effective against a media landscape that demanded constant access and endless explanations. Behind the scenes, concerns reportedly grew that events were moving beyond anyone's control. As the pressure mounted, family relationships became more complicated. Long-standing loyalties were tested. Private disagreements became entangled with public expectations. The boundaries between personal emotions and institutional responsibilities grew increasingly blurred. According to royal commentators, this period forced many members of the family into impossible situations, where every decision carried consequences that extended far beyond their own lives. For Princess Anne, these developments were reportedly impossible to ignore. She had spent years navigating the demands of royal duty and understood better than most how fragile stability could become during moments of crisis. While others found themselves pulled into public controversies, Anne maintained her reputation for discipline and restraint. Yet insiders have often suggested that she watched events unfold with growing concern. The deeper the divisions became, the more difficult it was to dismiss the possibility that lasting damage was being done, not only to individuals, but to the family itself. Questions also began emerging about whether enough support was provided during some of the most critical moments. These questions have never fully disappeared. Instead, they continue to resurface whenever discussions turn to Diana's final years. Could different choices have altered the course of events? Were opportunities missed when intervention might have made a difference? Those questions remain deeply sensitive, but they have persisted because no single explanation has ever satisfied everyone searching for answers. As the years passed, the public witnessed the visible consequences of these growing tensions, but what they saw may have represented only part of a much larger story. Behind official statements and carefully managed appearances, concerns continued to circulate among those who had witnessed events firsthand. Some believed they understood what had happened. Others suspected there was still more to uncover. And as the fractures within the royal household widened, the atmosphere surrounding Diana's situation became increasingly unsettling, creating a sense that something far more significant was unfolding beneath the surface. Yet according to whispers that continue to circulate today, the greatest concerns were not always visible to the public eye. Some insiders claim there were warnings, subtle at first, then increasingly difficult to ignore. Concerns were allegedly raised behind closed doors, but whether those warnings were fully understood remains a question that continues to haunt royal observers. As uncertainty deepened within the royal household, reports began surfacing of private conversations that never reached the public domain. These were not the dramatic headlines that dominated newspapers or the controversies debated on television. Instead, they were quieter concerns, shared among individuals who found themselves increasingly troubled by the direction events appeared to be taking. According to various accounts that have emerged over the years, there was a growing sense among certain senior figures that the pressures surrounding Princess Diana were becoming more serious than many people realized. The challenge was that those pressures did not come from a single source. They arrived from every direction at once. Public attention remained relentless. Media coverage intensified with every passing month. Personal relationships continued to face strain. Expectations from the institution remained enormous. Together, these forces created an environment that many observers now describe as extraordinarily difficult to navigate. While Diana remained one of the most admired women in the world, reports suggest she was simultaneously confronting emotional struggles that became harder and harder to contain. This contrast lies at the heart of the mystery that continues to surround her final years. On one hand stood a global icon whose influence seemed unmatched. On the other stood a woman reportedly wrestling with challenges that few people fully understood. The greater her public success became, the more complicated her private reality appeared to grow. It was a painful contradiction that left many wondering whether anyone truly grasped the depth of what she was experiencing. According to long-standing rumors, concerns about Diana's well-being were discussed privately among various members of the royal family and their advisors. These discussions remain difficult to verify in detail, yet they continue to attract attention because so many different accounts point toward a similar conclusion. There were individuals who feared the situation was becoming increasingly fragile. Kipps reportedly believed more support was needed. Others allegedly felt that circumstances would eventually stabilize on their own. The problem was that uncertainty seemed to dominate every conversation. As media scrutiny intensified, the pressure only became greater. Stories multiplied. Speculation accelerated. Every development generated fresh analysis and new controversy. The line between public fascination and personal intrusion grew increasingly blurred. For Diana, this environment reportedly became exhausting. For those around her, it created an atmosphere where decisions carried enormous consequences. Even well-intentioned actions could quickly become subjects of public debate, making it increasingly difficult to know which path forward was the right one. Questions surrounding the institutional response during this period have never fully disappeared. Decades later, they remain central to discussions about Diana's legacy. Could more have been done? Were there opportunities to intervene that were missed? Did the people closest to the situation fully appreciate the scale of the challenges involved? These questions persist because they touch on issues that remain deeply emotional and profoundly human. They are not merely questions about policy or protocol. They are questions about understanding, support, and responsibility. For Princess Anne, this period may have been especially significant. Various insiders have suggested that she witnessed conversations and concerns that never became public knowledge. Unlike many outside observers, she occupied a position close enough to see tensions developing in real time. She understood the demands of royal life and the pressures that accompanied it. If reports are accurate, she may have watched with growing unease as events continued moving toward an uncertain destination. Yet whatever concerns existed behind closed doors, they remained largely hidden from public view. And that secrecy has become one of the most enduring aspects of the story. The public saw headlines, the public saw controversy. But what occurred within private meetings and confidential discussions remains the subject of endless speculation. The more historians and commentators revisit this chapter, the more they find themselves returning to the same unsettling possibility, that important warnings may have existed. Yet their significance was not fully understood until it was far too late. What began as concern gradually evolved into something much darker, leaving behind questions that still echo through royal history today. Then came the moment that transformed concern into tragedy, and forever altered the course of royal history. When news of Diana's death reached Britain, shock spread across the world. Millions mourned, questions multiplied, and within royal circles, a period of grief began that would leave lasting scars for decades to come. Few moments in modern history have produced such an immediate and overwhelming emotional response. The announcement traveled across continents within hours, leaving people stunned by a tragedy that seemed impossible to comprehend. For millions who had followed Diana's life for years, the news felt deeply personal. She was not simply a member of the royal family. She had become a symbol of passion, vulnerability, and resilience. Her ability to connect with ordinary people had created a bond unlike anything the monarchy had experienced in generations. When that bond was suddenly broken, the reaction was extraordinary. Across Britain, disbelief quickly gave way to mourning. Public grief expanded with remarkable speed, transforming into something far larger than many officials had anticipated. People searched for answers while struggling to process an event that seemed to arrive without warning. Questions emerged almost immediately. How had this happened? Could it have been prevented? Were there signs that had been overlooked? The tragedy itself dominated public attention, but beneath the sorrow, a growing desire for understanding was already beginning to take shape. Within the royal family, the situation was equally complex. Alongside public expectations existed grief, and balancing those realities proved extraordinarily difficult. Reports from the period describe an institution confronting one of the greatest crises in its modern history. Every decision was scrutinized, every statement was analyzed, every action carried enormous significance. The monarchy was not only mourning the loss of a former member of the family, it was also facing a wave of public emotion unlike anything it had encountered before. For senior royals, the days that followed were reportedly marked by sadness, uncertainty, and immense pressure. While public discussions often focused on official responses, there were also personal dimensions to the tragedy that remained largely hidden from view. Individuals who had known Diana for years were now forced to grapple with the reality that she was gone. Relationships that had once been complicated suddenly became part of a much larger story, one defined by loss rather than disagreement. The emotional weight of that reality affected everyone differently, yet its impact was impossible to escape. Princess Anne's position during this period has long attracted particular interest. Throughout her life, Anne had built a reputation for resilience and composure, qualities that were especially important during moments of national difficulty. Yet, according to various accounts, Diana's death affected her deeply. The years of tension, concern, and uncertainty that had preceded the tragedy now took on an entirely different meaning. Questions that once seemed theoretical suddenly became painfully real. Discussions that had occurred behind closed doors could no longer be separated from the devastating outcome that followed. At the same time, the crisis exposed the extraordinary challenges facing the monarchy itself. Public expectations shifted rapidly. Many people wanted reassurance. Others demanded explanations. Some questioned decisions that had been made in the past, while others focused on how the institution was responding in the present. The result was an environment where grief and controversy existed side by side, creating a period of unprecedented pressure for everyone involved. Yet even as the world mourned, another process had already begun. The search for answers was gathering momentum. Journalists investigated every detail. Commentators revisited old events. Historians began examining decisions that had once received little attention. The tragedy had created not only heartbreak, but also a lasting sense of unfinished business. For many observers, Diana's death did not bring closure. Instead, it opened the door to years of speculation, debate, and lingering uncertainty. Those unanswered questions became part of her legacy. With each passing anniversary, interest returned. New theories emerged. Old controversies resurfaced. People continued searching for explanations that might help them understand how such a beloved figure could meet such a tragic fate. And while the public focused on the event itself, others quietly turned their attention toward what was happening behind palace walls, where a different struggle was beginning to take shape. But while the world focused on the tragedy itself, another battle was quietly unfolding behind palace gates. Time was supposed to close the chapter. Instead, it seemed to create even more questions. Every anniversary brought renewed speculation, fresh investigations, and persistent rumors that important parts of the story had never been fully told. As the years passed, many expected public interest in Princess Diana's story to gradually fade. History often moves on. New events capture attention. New generations focus on different figures. Yet Diana's story followed a different path. Rather than disappearing into the past, it seemed to become even more deeply embedded within public consciousness. Each anniversary reignited conversations. Each documentary revived old debates. Each new book promised answers while often creating even more uncertainty. Instead of delivering closure, time appeared to deepen the mystery. Part of the reason was Diana herself. Few public figures have left behind a legacy as powerful or as emotionally complex. To millions of people, she remained a symbol of compassion, courage, and humanity. Her influence extended far beyond royal history. She continued to inspire discussions about duty, personal struggle, public expectations, and the human cost of life under relentless scrutiny. Because of that enduring connection, public curiosity never truly disappeared. It simply evolved, transforming from immediate grief into a long search for understanding. Over time, countless books, interviews, television specials, and investigative projects attempted to revisit the events surrounding her life and death. Each promised a clearer picture. Each claimed to uncover details that had previously remained hidden. Yet the more material emerged, the more complicated the story became. Different accounts often contradicted one another. Individuals who had experienced the same events sometimes remembered them in dramatically different ways. One source would suggest a particular explanation while another would challenge it entirely. Instead of creating certainty, these conflicting narratives often produced fresh mysteries. Former staff members reportedly became an especially important part of this evolving conversation. As years passed, some individuals who had once remained silent began reflecting on experiences they had carried with them for decades. Their observations did not always provide definitive answers, but they frequently added new layers to the story. Small details that once seemed insignificant suddenly attracted renewed attention. Private conversations were reconsidered. Decisions that had appeared routine were examined through an entirely different lens. The The result was a growing belief that important aspects of Diana's final years had never been fully understood. At the center of this atmosphere of uncertainty stood Princess Anne. Unlike many others connected to the story, Anne largely maintained her silence. She did not become a regular participant in public debates. She did not seek interviews focused on past controversies. She continued to perform her duties with the same discipline and restraint that had defined her entire life. Yet that silence gradually became a subject of fascination in its own right. The less she said publicly, the more people wondered what she might know privately. For many observers, Anne's silence carried particular significance because of her reputation. She was not viewed as someone who embraced sensationalism or sought attention. Her credibility came from consistency, not publicity. As a result, speculation continued to grow around the possibility that she possessed insights that had never been shared. Some commentators suggested she may have witnessed conversations lost to history. Others believed she understood dynamics within the family that outsiders could never fully appreciate. Whether those theories were accurate remained impossible to confirm, but they persisted year after year. At the same time, a broader belief began taking hold among royal watchers and historians. The belief was simple yet powerful. Key witnesses to one of the most important chapters in modern royal history were still alive, and some of them may still hold information that has never reached the public. This idea fueled endless discussion. Every new interview generated attention. Every unexpected comment attracted scrutiny. People searched for clues not because they expected a single revelation to explain everything, but because they sensed that the full story might still be incomplete. That possibility transformed silence itself into a part of the mystery. The absence of answers became almost as significant as the questions. And with every passing year, the feeling grew stronger that something remained unresolved beneath the surface. The chapter many believed had ended was still being written in unexpected ways. What began as speculation slowly evolved into anticipation, and anticipation into a growing sense that one day, someone with unique knowledge might finally decide to speak. Few imagined that person could be Princess Anne. Yet the whispers surrounding her continued to grow louder, bringing the story toward a dramatic new turning point. Now, decades later, that silence may finally be coming to an end in a way few expected. According to growing speculation, Princess Anne has reached a point where remaining silent no longer serves the institution she spent her life protecting. And if those reports are accurate, her perspective could challenge assumptions that have stood unchallenged for years. For decades, Princess Anne's silence was interpreted as loyalty. It was viewed as part of the discipline that had defined her entire life within the monarchy. While countless books were written, documentaries produced, and debates held about Princess Diana's legacy, Anne rarely entered the conversation publicly. She continued to focus on duty, remaining one of the most respected and hardworking members of the royal family. Yet now, according to increasing speculation from royal commentators and observers, there is a growing belief that her silence may no longer serve the same purpose it once did. At the heart of these discussions is the idea that Anne may believe history deserves a more complete record. Not a dramatic revision of events, not a sensational revelation designed to generate headlines. Rather, a more honest understanding of a period that shaped both the monarchy and the lives of countless people connected to it. For years, public conversations about Diana have often been framed through competing narratives. One side emphasizes institutional responsibility. Another focuses on personal circumstances. Others argue that the truth exists somewhere in between. What makes Anne's reported perspective so significant is that she may have observed aspects of the story that fit neatly into none of those categories. According to various reports, there is growing discussion that important context surrounding Diana's final years may have been overlooked as public attention focused on larger controversies. Context does not necessarily change facts, but it can change understanding. It can reveal motivations, pressures, and circumstances that are invisible when viewed from a distance. If Anne believes certain elements of the historical record are incomplete, that belief alone carries enormous weight because of her reputation for caution and restraint. These conversations have also reignited broader questions about responsibility and support. Throughout the years, countless debates have centered on whether more could have been done to help Diana during some of the most difficult periods of her life. Those questions remain emotionally charged because they touch on issues that extend beyond royal history. They concern how institutions respond to personal struggles. They concern how families navigate crises. They concern the difficult balance between public duty and private well-being. If Anne is indeed reconsidering aspects of that period, many believe her reflections could provide valuable insight into those larger questions. The possibility has already attracted renewed interest from historians, journalists, and royal commentators. Every hint of a new perspective is analyzed. Every reported conversation becomes the subject of intense discussion. Some observers believe Anne could help clarify misunderstandings that have persisted for decades. Others caution that any new information may only add further complexity to an already complicated story. Yet regardless of where those debates lead, one fact remains undeniable. People are paying attention in a way they have not for years. Public reaction has been equally striking. For many, Anne's reputation is precisely what makes these reports so compelling. She is not associated with dramatic public interventions. She is not known for seeking attention. That credibility has created a sense of anticipation around the possibility that she may eventually share insights that challenge long-standing assumptions. Whether those insights come through private conversations, historical accounts, or other channels remains uncertain. The speculation itself has become part of the story. What makes this moment particularly fascinating is the growing belief that Anne may not be the only person still carrying untold knowledge from that era. If new perspectives begin emerging, they could encourage others to revisit events that have remained largely untouched for decades. Questions that once seemed impossible to answer may receive new context. Old mysteries could acquire fresh dimensions. Long-standing assumptions may be tested against information that was previously unavailable or overlooked. Yet perhaps the most important aspect of this development is not what Anne may reveal, but why. If the reports are accurate, the motivation appears rooted not in revisiting old conflicts, but in preserving a clearer understanding of history. Because history influences how future generations interpret the past, and the story of Diana remains one of the most influential chapters in modern royal history. If new perspectives are beginning to emerge, their impact could extend far beyond the present moment, shaping conversations for years to come. But the significance of Anne's words extends far beyond revisiting the past. It could shape how future generations understand Diana's legacy. History often belongs to those who tell the story last, and after decades of speculation, grief, and unanswered questions, Princess Anne's reported willingness to speak may represent one of the most consequential moments in the ongoing effort to understand Princess Diana's place in royal history. More than a quarter of a century has passed since Diana's death, yet her presence remains woven into the story of the modern monarchy. Few figures have left such a lasting mark on both an institution and the people who watched it. Generations have grown up hearing her story. Some remember following every headline as events unfolded in real time. Others know her only through documentaries, books, interviews, and the countless discussions that continue to surround her legacy. Yet, despite the passing years, one remarkable truth remains unchanged. Diana continues to inspire powerful emotions, difficult questions, and an enduring desire to understand what really happened during one of the most turbulent chapters in royal history. That enduring influence explains why the possibility of Princess Anne speaking more openly carries such significance. Throughout her life, Anne has earned a reputation built on consistency, honesty, and duty. She is not viewed as someone driven by public approval or media attention. Instead, she represents stability within an institution that has often found itself navigating storms of uncertainty. Because of that reputation, any perspective she may offer is likely to be viewed through a very different lens than many of the accounts that have emerged over the years. For many observers, Anne's credibility makes the possibility of her reflections especially important. At the heart of this discussion lies something larger than any single individual. It is the question of how history should be remembered. Every major event leaves behind competing interpretations. Different people experience the same moment in different ways. Memories fade, perspectives evolve. Yet preserving an honest historical record remains essential because future generations depend upon it to understand the past. If important context has been overlooked or forgotten, then efforts to recover that context become more than a matter of curiosity. They become part of a broader search for truth. This is particularly important when considering how future generations may view Diana herself. For some, she will always be remembered as a beloved princess whose compassion transformed public perceptions of the monarchy. For others, she represents a more complicated story about the pressures of public life, the challenges of personal struggle, and the cost of existing under constant scrutiny. Neither perspective fully captures the whole picture. The real story likely exists somewhere between admiration and tragedy, success and suffering, public triumph and private pain. Understanding that complexity may be one of the most important lessons her legacy can offer. The impact of Diana's story can also be seen through her sons. Prince William and Prince Harry have carried that legacy throughout their adult lives, often in very different ways. Their experiences have kept public interest alive because they represent a continuing connection between the past and the present. Every discussion about Diana inevitably leads back to the influence she had on the people closest to her. Her legacy is not confined to history books. It continues to shape conversations about family, duty, responsibility, and the future of the monarchy itself. Perhaps that is why the search for understanding remains so powerful even today. It is not simply about revisiting old events. It is about making sense of a story that continues to resonate across generations. It is about understanding how one woman's life, struggles, and influence transformed an institution and left a permanent mark on millions of people around the world. And it is about recognizing that some questions continue to matter because they touch on universal themes of compassion, loss, resilience, and truth. Whether Princess Anne ultimately shares new insights or whether some mysteries remain forever unresolved, the conversation itself reflects the enduring significance of Diana's place in history. The questions have survived because the legacy has survived. The interest remains because the impact remains. And as long as people continue searching for understanding, the story will never truly fade away. Because while years may pass and headlines may fade, the story of Princess Diana continues to echo through the halls of the monarchy, and the truths that remained hidden for so long may finally be stepping into the light. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.